President Trump's second term has seen one of the most controversial subjects more often than not, which is the Epstein Files. US President had in fact committed to release them, and then there were allegations that he was named in the files himself. As the Department of Justice released a fresh set of documents pertaining to Epstein, the latest tranche has also named billionaire entrepreneur Bill Gates. The documents suggest Bill Gates visited Epstein's island, also contracted an STD after coming in contact with women there. It also claimed that he secretly sought antibiotics for his then-wife Melinda Gates to secretly administer them. His ex-wife Melinda has since revealed that this incident did lead to tension between the two of them and hinted it was one of the reasons for the decision to end their 27-year-long marriage. However, Bill Gates has now clarified, claiming that he indeed did spend time with Epstein and that he regrets it. He also adds that he never visited his island, nor did he meet with any women connected to Jeffrey Epstein. So what's the real story? Listen in.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
With the Epstein files coming out in the public domain, videos as well as emails that have revealed very, very shocking details. To talk about that, we have with us a very special guest. Marina Lacerda was minor victim number 1 in Epstein's 2019 indictment. Many thanks for joining us on Times Now, Ms. Lacerda. And let me begin with the US Department of Justice having released millions of pages of documents that are related to the Epstein investigation. At a time when there are very deeply disturbing details that are emerging, the world is in shock at the scale and the nature of the information contained in these files. And with the final Epstein files being released and now in the public domain, do you believe that this marks a turning point in the survivors' long fight for truth, accountability, and justice?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on the show as well.
So yes, yes, a lot of the files were released. It was deeply upsetting, and we were heartbroken to see that the DOJ has failed us not once, but twice at this point. And it just feels like they're ignoring our need for protection. It is very unsafe to have that kind of information out there. And, we also have to look at the allegations that were made, that we wonder today, will the DOJ investigate, or are they just going to sweep it under the carpet?
Right. Now, Trump's name appears more than 1,000 times with serious claims, including sexual misconduct against him. However, shortly after the release of the files, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche told media that there's no credible information for further investigation. And he's been quoted as saying that the Department of Justice said that we had reviewed the files, the Epstein files, and there was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody. How do you react to the US government's position that the release of the files is not connected to the ongoing investigation and that the government won't be pushing additional investigation against concerned individuals?
Well, it is concerning for the American people when Todd Blanche has, he sat up there and said a whole bunch of things. He also said that we had a clear communication with the DOJ. That is absolutely not true. They have failed to redact our names, and we can see they also have failed to, provide what they promised us, right? So we need to really keep this topic at light at all times. And I think that the most important thing here is that, these allegations are very serious. And whether the American people or the DOJ don't want to believe and they don't want to see that Donald Trump's name was not mentioned 1,000, it was about 4,096 times, I think. Somebody had counted it. And we have to see, he's talking about, Wolf all the time, and how Wolf and Jeffrey Epstein were trying to, say things about him that weren't true. And now he's trying to sue Wolf. And to be honest with you, Wolf has came out and said, hey, listen, you want to sue me, I'll sue you, but you're going to have to answer a lot of questions. That means he's going to get subpoena Trump. So in the end, you can try to get away with it, but it looks like to me that him and Melania, Trump and Melania, are going to get subpoena because they're going to go head to head over here. So it's just that Wolf did admit that he did say that he wanted Jeffrey Epstein to say what he knew about Trump. And a week later, Trump's administration, or the DOJ, went and arrested Jeffrey Epstein. So there is a lot of things there that we don't know, but I think it will come to light at some point.
Right, because, it involves a lot of high-profile individuals. Many call them the global elite. Do you feel that accused individuals are being shielded?
Yes, 100%. When we see Donald Trump, just to say, go up and, talk about the allegations that were made, and he starts pointing out to Elon Musk, and he starts to point out to Wolf. And then we also have to say the movie that just came out with Melania, the director, is also in those pictures with Trump, and his answers to those pictures, which he calls allegations, that was his fiance. That was 20 years ago. People can say and make up excuses, but we have read the files, right? We have seen these pictures, right? And then we need to be, people who use our brains and say, these are not fake. There's more than 20 allegations there, accusing these prominent people of doing wrong things. And we have to just come to, a realization that this needs to be investigated immediately. These are not, little allegations that somebody say you stole candy from me. These are serious allegations. And, whether they want to shield them and protect them, I think the American people, and I think everyone around the world, will continue to talk about this until we see some sort of justice.
Absolutely. There are also disclosures suggesting that Epstein trafficked young girls, as you rightly mentioned, to other individuals. And there's a pointing to this possibility of the involvement of certain third parties. Do you think there could still be active facilitators or agents linked to this network who've not yet been identified or held accountable for their role?
100%. 100%. I think there are people who are, again, we have 3 million files that, if we see in these 3 million files that has shocked us, can we imagine what they have locked away in these other 3 million files? I can't even imagine, worse than this. And I think there are people, politicians, and, we look at, I think, for instance, Jay-Z has fled the country. He's no longer here. So we start to look at these people and we see that they are on these Epstein files and they're just fleeting out of here. We look at Prince Andrew, for example, right now. He is under investigation. He is under investigation. There is a woman out there who's saying that, hey, listen, you have sexually abused me and done some things to her, right? But Prince Andrew doesn't want to answer to American soil. He's now disregarded his lawyers. He's disregarding our lawyers, and he needs to answer to us, because before it was perfectly fine for him to come to American soil. Now he doesn't even want to answer to us. So we need those answers. So there are people there that are under, investigation, but they're not complying with the law.
Right. And these new disclosures have also drawn attention to a message attributed to Sarah Ferguson, the ex-wife of Prince Andrew, in which she's seen congratulating Epstein on a new baby boy. Does that suggest that he may have had secret children? And does that also mean that such high-profile individuals were also aware of Epstein's personal affairs?
See, that is insane, right? We look at the news today and we see that somebody might be Jeffrey Epstein's son, right? And, it doesn't sound shocking. I do know a survivor who is very close to me who actually got pregnant with Jeffrey Epstein. So, and she decided to terminate that pregnancy. It was not Jeffrey Epstein's decision. It was her decision. And in fact, when we go through the Epstein files, I can see her name there going to the doctor, and Jeffrey Epstein's secretary is emailing Jeffrey saying, hey, listen, so-and-so doctor is asking for so-and-so. Are you going to pay for her doctor? If not, she's going back home. So he paid for those doctors for her to get the abortion. I don't think he was okay with it, because on those emails, they were going back and forth a lot, and he almost didn't want to pay for it. So, I do believe here that, like I said before, there are women that have reached out to me, and he had a lab where he was working with women and trying to, keep his legacy and, human traffic them in a different way. So I do believe that there is, there's possibility that, he does have a kid out there. And listen, will we ask for DNA? That is a big question over here. Maybe we may have to, because these pictures are linked in together. So, there's a lot of information there that is just unanswered, and we are frustrated at this point.
Right. I also want to ask you that with the release of these files, the extent of Epstein's connections with powerful figures across politics, business, technology, royalties, sports, finance, all of that is now very clear. Do you see a realistic possibility of a massive political and legal action against such influential individuals, because they also have a tremendous amount of clout, or do these elites remain effectively invincible because of their very power and networks?
Well, that's a good question, and that's something that we're trying to figure out ourselves. We're trying to figure out if, are these elite people going to get away with it? And like I said, some of these elite people, some of these Hollywood stars, some of these singers have managed to now, leave the country, because once you leave the country, you no longer have to answer questions to American soil. But at some point you have to come back. At some point you have to answer these questions, and it's really up to the, to FBI and the DOJ if they're going to follow up with these investigations. We are trying to really, go on and see if that we can follow up these investigations and follow up these questions. And it starts with Prince Andrew, but he is not answering anything that we want to say. There are serious allegations against him right now. So I think that, unfortunately to say, and it's sad to say this, they might just get away with it. Again, the rich, the powerful men get away with it. There's also some allegation of some women there, being involved. And I think it just comes down to, it's not only men, it's just the rich and powerful. So we have to keep our heads up high and continue fighting.
So one aspect of this, and rightly so for survivors like yourself, is, bringing the accused, the guilty, to justice. But the other aspect is the possibility that the child abuse perhaps could be continuing. Because, it's true that Epstein is no longer alive. Ghislaine Maxwell has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. The continued presence of Epstein's wider network, however, the associates we were talking about earlier, across the globe, that's what could possibly raise serious concerns. Do you believe that this network still poses a real risk of child trafficking and exploitation that is perhaps even continuing as we speak?
Well, we have to think about this. When Jeffrey Epstein was put away in 2008 and he got a sweetheart deal, while he was incarcerated, well, not incarcerated because they gave him, he was able to go home and complete his time. He created a science fund. And while in that science fund, he was trafficking and sexually and raping women. So when we think about, when an abuser is out there being free, okay, we can only think of one thing. Has he not only hurt that child or that woman and this person, he is continuing. It is a disease. It does not stop. We have to put men away. So I do think that many more women out there are being trafficked and are being abused. And I hope that they hear this, no matter where they are in the world. And I hope and I feel that they see it in their heart that the right thing to do here is to speak up, maybe reach out to our lawyers, reach out to definitely not the DOJ, I'll tell you that much, which is Brad and Brittany Henderson. If they can get in contact with them and just tell them what is going on, they will definitely do their best to try and help them, because in order for this all to stop, we need to know what's going on now in the future and in this ongoing time to see if we can put these, individuals, away, or at least bring them to some sort of justice. But if you are out there and you are being abused by any of these men that are mentioned in the files, we do need to know so that we can have more, concrete of information, and we can, proceed with, some sort of justice or something,
Marina Lacerda, before I let you go, I want you to tell us about your case itself. I know it's difficult to recount these episodes, but as far as Epstein himself is concerned, the manner in which he would threaten you, you have spoken about it in the past, the manner in which he would intimidate you and use these same power circles that he was very influential in to try and scare you and other victims. Tell us about that.
He has done that so much in the past. And I think, Jeffrey Epstein, and that's why some people say he's so charismatic. Like you've had some of, survivors say he's so charismatic, he's so charismatic. It's because Jeffrey Epstein can be very nice. But we also have to know that is the power of a perpetrator. He knows how to groom people in a way where he's like, I'm going to be extremely nice, but I'm going to let you know who I know, what I hold, and what power I can use against you. And that's exactly what Jeffrey Epstein did to all of us. He made sure that he knew the presidents, he knew very, very important people, including Prince Andrews, which he had pictures, and Bill Clinton, which I don't know, he had some sort of infatuation with Bill Clinton, President Trump and other prominent people that were all over his desk, and I think he really used that. When we used to do, when we were in the room and we were doing massages on him, he always was on the phone with an important person. And that was his way of saying to us, don't mess with me. I know all these people. I own the bank. I own the government. I own the president. And what I know about the president, he used to say, it will fire up this country. So we knew right there and then. And a couple of other things that he did, he used to, not only brag about who he knew and what he owned, but he would laugh about things as in, if you only knew what I know about this person, so and so, and I don't want to say anything and any names, but we would be like, oh my God, how do you know these prominent people? And how do you know things about them? Because he was very well connected to them and he was very much friends with them. So we do know that, he had his way of, definitely delivering the message to us in a very nice way. And that's why you hear some girls say he's very charismatic. He's very charismatic. And I get it. He may be charismatic, but he was threatening us. And that's all he did. And it just wasn't in a way, if you did that, I'm going to do this. It was like, well, look who I know, and a lot of times he used to, tell, all of us, be careful who you talk to, be careful who you tell that be careful who you tell where you're coming, including sometimes when we used to get cab drivers to go. At one point, he didn't want us to get in regular cabs. He wanted a black, limo cab. Back then, it was, these black cars, which wasn't the yellow taxis. And we had to run it by a company. And, he knew to stay safe, he had to have control.
Right. Marina Lacerda, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now, and we wish you all the best for your fight as far as justice for the victims in the Epstein case is concerned. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And please, everyone, don't forget, protect your peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.